Hello, Tad. A huge warm welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much. Good to be here again.
Yeah, not such a long break between conversations this time, which is all good. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I mean, I always am looking forward to a conversation with you. And I was thinking, as I was pondering the topic of this episode, I was thinking, do you know what? I think you and I could talk about spiders and it be a really juicy conversation. So I'm particularly looking forward to this conversation because, and I'll explain a bit what brought us here in a moment, but it certainly is one of those ones that has a kind of, there's a bit of a selfish desire in why we're having this, but I really wanting to us to talk about this in a way that's going to be most useful to listeners, and I think it will be. And that's what brought me to the conversation. You know what? Whatever we're going to talk about, I'm sure people will love it. So it's all good. So I saw a post where you were talking about. I actually think you were talking about your revenue over the last few years, which was an interesting thing in itself. But the particular thing that interested me was you talking about the membership that you created. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
2020. Yeah,
2020.
December 2020. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And that really drew my attention because, as I shared with you, we had a membership, I don't know how many years ago now, 6-7 years ago, which at the time felt really aligned and it was popular and worked. And then for various reasons, it no longer did. So we closed it and then haven't had a membership for all the years since. But it's something we actually get asked for one way or another quite often, where people, for example, may have gone through one of our courses, been with us for, I don't know, 6 months or so, come out the other end and really feel like they would like it's somewhere or other sort of keep in that conversation that we're in. And we've kept thinking like, maybe it is time to create a membership. And then when I saw that you had, because of the, I guess, the alignment between like the way you do things and the way we do things, and it really been based in principles that just work for humans, but also for humans living in deep connection with everything around us. I was like, if we are going to do it, I know that I would like to really talk to Tad about how he's done it, because I know there'll be something in what you've done that will be helpful and inspiring for us. And then again, hopefully for our listeners. And then if that's not juicy enough, I was just asking you if you feel that we can also weave in the theme of community into this conversation. Again, for us, that'd be a really big reason why we'd want to create a membership again. And there's also, and in fact, I'm not going to even say the bit that I said to you earlier. I would love to hear you firstly talk about your sense of community when it comes to online versions of it, and the kind of reservation, let's say, that you have about that. So I'm not going to say any more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that before we dive into anything else.
Sure. Yeah, so this whole phrase of online community, we hear more and more, and people say, yeah, join our online community, and that's one of the big, I suppose, selling points of a lot of these things is, well, you'll be a part of a community and you'll get that sense of belonging and all of that. And it just lifts up a lot of questions about what do we even mean by community. When I started my mentorship program, there's 12 people at a time, and I remember during one of the calls somebody said, can we do Zoom it, because I was just using audio. And I said, why do you want video? And they said, well, so I can see the other people, I'd feel more connected, this kind of have this more of a sense of community. And I just said, that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to build, I've got a garbage truck going by. I'm not trying to build community here. And if you're looking for that, this isn't where you'll find it. And now I've gotten over my disinclination towards Zoom, and I think it's fine, and it's good that people see each other and do feel more connected. But I really, for the whole time, the 4 or 5 years I did my mentorship, I at no point tried to build any kind of community. I didn't offer support in that. I didn't, and it happened anyways in terms of people connected with each other. But I think perhaps more authentically because I wasn't pushing it. My big reservation was, hopefully, I mean, we actually live somewhere and there's real people in those places that need us. And so doing something that is attempting to build some community with a bunch of people who are far away from where they live and taking people away from their local communities is something I'm extremely cagey about. I just said they're real people in your life who need you, and that's how it should be. And this is a business program to help you build your business. And if any friendships develop, I'm thrilled, but I'm not angling for it. That's not part of the pitch. So for me, that was it. And it really did happen. I wrapped up that mentorship program, and they still meet at the same time once a week. And
Oh,
they have for probably almost a year now. So that's good. It's fine. It's just that, I suppose we should make a distinction between, online community, real community, but another way to say it is communities of affinity and communities of geography. And I submit that the real thing is communities of geography.
yeah.
And the challenge with these communities of affinity, basically we get together with a bunch of people who agree with us on whatever the central core issue is. And this idea that community means only being with people who agree with you is, a part of the fractionation of society we see into these smaller and smaller silos. And if somebody doesn't agree with you on something that matters to you, then, well, they're out. But if you lived in the country, and where I live, you just definitely don't agree with your neighbors on a lot of things, but you still show up to help them. If they need to help bringing in the harvest, you're there, and they're there for you. And the fact that you disagree about really important jugular issues doesn't factor into the mix quite as heavily as it does in this online space where you say one wrong thing and that's it, and you're canceled and you're out.
Can we just pause there a moment? I think there's something so much deep truth in what you've just said, and I think that's been highlighted in both a really difficult way and also a really beautiful way over the last couple of years. I mean, I know that you and I had a conversation kind of off the record after our last episode. Don't worry, I'm not going to reveal the contents of that, but I was just thinking, for so many of us during the, let's call it kind of COVID period, there were very real differences in where we might be coming from compared to those around us. And then also, and I can certainly speak for myself personally, between, say, for example, my view and my neighbour's view, worlds apart in terms of our perspective on almost anything COVID. And we were really there for each other when, for example, we needed, I don't know, groceries getting for each other, things like that. And I can really see how exactly what you're saying, it was an opportunity for that to be highlighted, to be magnified, the importance of that geographical community, even and especially during that time of like the differences being amplified.
Yeah. It's so, to me, and one of the challenges or concerns I have is we're moving increasingly into a sort of technocratic age. And possibly a transhumanist age, where technology becomes inextricably woven into our lives and our
Everything.
bodies. Yeah, everything,
Mm,
and it's, technocracy is to society what transhumanism is to the human body. And then we're going to get our smart cities, and everything's going to be Wi-Fi'd up and 5G'd up and 6G and all this. So what that facilitates, and now this metaverse, and it's very easy to escape. It's very easy to go there, and then you get to have your online community. But you may find that if you're going through a tough time, if you're moving, if you need help with groceries, if you get sick, those people not only won't be there for you, not only have no capacity to be there for you, but possibly no inclination, because you're just,
mm.
sort of an online pal that, you game with. Or so this is tricky, because every hour we invest there, we're not investing here. I think probably what's happening, if we're smart about it, is, it's like certain machines that I would submit humanity at some point needs to do away with. But in the transition out, uh, maybe we can do some earth moving and do some permaculture with them. And so if there's a use for these kinds of online communities where people can, because it's tough, people can feel very isolated geographically where they are and not have anyone else to talk with about some of the things they believe.
Mm.
And especially for me around the cultural piece, yeah, people can feel very isolated. And so these sorts of online spaces can be a good way for people to go and learn, deepen what they understand. And my hope would be, with the eye towards then translating that into their lives, into their real communities. Because
Oh, I love that. Yes,
if it
yes.
doesn't make that step of translation, then to me, what's the point? That we just all live in the
Mm.
metaverse for the rest of our lives, and we create, online communities there, and then what's the consequence to our lives and the planet if we do that? So I think what the world needs is real communities, real cultures of real human beings living in the places that they live. And if this online stuff can facilitate people making that transition, help them get the skills, both hard and soft, that they need to live in that kind of way, fine, thumbs up. But it's real easy.
Yeah,
It's easy to miss the turn on that one. It's easy to miss the off ramp,
totally.
and
Mm.
suddenly you're just there all the time.
Yeah, because it's
If
so seductive. It's so, as you, by the way, your mic sort of, I think, bouncing and feedbacking a little bit. Um, I think there's, yeah, oh my goodness. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm really glad that we're going to, you have this as the foundation from which to create from. I think this is almost as important as it gets. I really do. Everything you've said just lands as a deep, deep truth for me. And this is the thing, it's like the online communities, for the very reason you've said, because they've been created around an affinity, they feel great. That they're like so seductive because they allow you to feel seen. They allow you to have like, really juicy conversations. And in fact, at the moment we're running our 9-month program, Waking Wild Medicine. And something that was coming up really clearly in today's circle was this sense of the more they, I guess, come back to themselves and live from, much more of a true sense of self, the harder it is to be with their family, with people that know them. And if it stayed that way, that would be, as you say, a kind of like a turn in the wrong direction. Whereas the work really is to be able to then bring that to their family, to their community, which also reminds me of something. My shamanic teacher is British, but his teachers are Indigenous Mexicans. And what they constantly say is the place to always start is your family. Like, this isn't about kind of, trying to take it out as far as possible. Like, if you're not starting with your family, don't bother. So yeah, this is just delighting me that we're having this conversation. It really is.
Well, and it's because I think culture, we put a lot of stock in how do we feel about each other in relationships. And but the challenge is then if I feel good about you today, well then I behave well to you today, and we're friends. And if I feel not so great towards you, then it's kind of all over. And in the modern era, especially with this online, that's never been easier to leave, to
Yeah.
unfriend somebody, to leave an online community, find another one where, you know, everything's okay. It's easier and easier to leave. And I don't think that community comes from how we feel about each other and our love for each other anywhere near as much as it comes from our love for something that we all
Mm.
share, that we all love a piece of land, we love a language, we love kids are running by. You know, we love yeah, we love our children, and we're dedicated to them and the future generations. We love the culture, the rituals, the stories that we all share.
Mm.
That the love for those things is what pulls you through the times where you don't love each other. And that, of course, um, I think exists best locally in the places we are. And ultimately, it has to be rooted in the land. It has to be based on a
Yes.
place. Um, that's at the center to me of what it means to be indigenous in any meaningful way is the land. What it means
Yeah.
to be a real human is to be connected to the land. And so to the extent that we go into this online thing and stay there, I just think we're less human.
Oh my
So,
goodness, yes. In fact,
so
could I just jump in there? For me, a community isn't community without it being the community, like communing with the land, with the other beings of the land. For me, it just isn't community without that. So yeah, I love what you just said. Carry on, but I had to say that because it's, yeah, that for me feels so true, and something again that we're, I think culturally have such a wound around that is so easily missed.
yeah, and it's worth pointing out that online community means, yeah, community of humans. That's as good as
Mm.
it's going to get online. It's a community of humans.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
the it's a strange thing living in this Anthropocene age where humans are everywhere or have touched everything, and our chemicals are everywhere. So we're around people all the time. We can't almost get away from people, and we've never been more lonely. So what's that about?
Mm.
And I think the loneliness comes because we no longer have a relationship with, if you could imagine a sort of a tripod of three poles coming together. You know, one of them is our lived relationship to the human world, but there's also our lived relationship to the non-human world, to all the plants and the animals, and there's our lived relationship to the unseen,
Yeah.
in whatever way we understand that. And that is fundamentally, essentially banished online. So it's just humans trying to figure out our stuff with each other, and handle our loneliness by our relationships with other humans who we may never actually meet in person. So this is the insanity of where it's at. And then you think, okay, aha, I finally found a community where we all agree on everything. And you know, so you say, okay, I finally found a community. I think of the COVID stuff, and there are people who are pushing back against the mandates, and they found their freedom community. Okay, we finally found it. And then the Roe versus Wade thing happens. Now the abortion conversation comes in, and that freedom is just shattered right down the middle on that issue. And then you think, okay, so we're going to be pro freedom, but also pro choice. Great. So now we found this community, and then nuclear power or something comes. You know, it just keeps
Mm.
fractionating. If there's not some core of something we all love together, we just fall apart again and again and get divided into smaller and smaller subsections, which can then be marketed to and sold solutions. The solutions that will never do anything to actually deal with the root issue. You
Yeah.
know, you feel
Yeah.
lonely, so join this online community, but it doesn't deal with and address the core fundamental issue of the breakdown of our local geographic communities, which is why we even need this online community as a synthetic supplement in the first place. So more and more niched in the world, all those niches are fundamentally based on issues and struggles that people have. Those issues and struggles have institutional causes that are never and can never really be addressed by the likes of you or I doing some kind of online coaching program. So there's that too. We keep trying to solve our individual troubles, almost all of which are the result of the breakdown of any sense of real community and village in our lived lives. And we're just all limping around coping with the absence of that. And instead of dealing with that locally where we live, we're going to courses that can help us deal with the symptoms of not having that, while never trying to rebuild it for ourselves and those to come.
Oh, Tad, I could kiss you, honestly. I love the way that we're recording an episode about online communities, memberships, and like so much of your work is around niches and marketing. And then like before we even start, let's just like burn it all down, rip it to pieces. I just love this. And I'm just, oh my goodness. I think, yeah, what a wonderful place, honest place to have the conversation from, which again, I just feel like I'm so glad it was you that I came to have this conversation, because that for me is exactly where it's at. And it really is, I think, with that degree of honesty, we then got some hope of creating something beautiful, something of value, and with full recognition of all of what you've just said in terms of what's actually at play here. And I'm not ignoring that, but seeing if we can create something beautiful that takes that into account. And ultimately, as you say, if woven into that isn't this message that if you aren't then proactively creating a relationship with what's around you geographically, the land, the people, the animals, the spirit, there is no point anyway.
Yeah, and if you're not doing something, contending with the forces that make that difficult, if not impossible, then what are we doing? And I should say, I mean, I'm not trying to burn it all down, but what I am trying to do is put it in its proper place, in its proper context.
Yeah.
That, online community gets lionized as if it's some great solution to our troubles. I'm not arguing that it doesn't have some role, that it isn't beneficial in some ways, but it's beneficial in the way that a crutch is beneficial. It's good for a time,
Yeah.
but if you don't deal with the fundamental injury that you have and you keep on the crutches, that will not make you healthier. It's designed to get you through a little hump and then you're walking again. And if you keep using crutches, the crutches themselves will cripple you. The crutches themselves will do damage because your body starts to adapt to this thing. And then now you need a crutch for the crutch. And it's the same thing with modern medication. You take a medication for a symptom and thank God, because maybe it helps in the short term, but then you get side effects from that. And if you don't get off that medication, now you got to take, and then you got to take, and suddenly you're on 10 medications to deal with the effects of these other medications. And that's what it looks like if you go just down the online rabbit hole. Because then, oh my God, well, I find it hard to be disciplined because I'm at home alone by myself all the time. So I got an app for the discipline thing. And then, I've got apps to stay in touch with people. And, there's a lack of beauty. Well, I've got an app that shows me beautiful pictures. I don't feel very spiritual. I got an app to help, and suddenly it's all here in this strange metaverse. That's where that ultimately goes, with more and more isolated lives as the fabric of culture gets torn down to extended family, and then nuclear family, and then a single parent family, and then your whole world is your inner life. It collapses even beyond the individual into their inner life, and there you are in your meditation cushion trying to fulfill yourself in the absence of the village that you should be inside of. So I'm just trying to contextualize it, that it's like, of course I have apps and you have apps and they're helpful, and we have online spaces where people can get together, and thank God. But let's just not imagine that's the grand revolution. That's what they sell us to stop us from revolting.
So there's part of me that almost feels like we're complete. Like that's an episode in itself, even though it's not the conversation we came here to have. And I do really want to have that conversation, but there's just something so so right in everything that we've just been exploring. And I really, again, feel like to be able to honor that in the conversation we're about to have about creating online memberships, I think is so serving. And it's more and more become something that's very important in our work, both in terms of, and this is, I guess, maybe, and I'd be interested to know if your thoughts on this has changed actually. So over the years, in our work, we've become more and more conscious of the need for community, and community of the kind we're just talking about, community in our local area, but also creating communities around the work. So much of the work we do now takes place in circle, and really harnessing that medicine of circle as part of the work we're doing. And that over time has become more and more of a conscious choosing. And it really feels that consciously created, a membership can be another version of that. So I'd love to know how much that has been a change for you. You went back to where you were a couple of years ago, I think you said, where someone said like they'd really like to have a community be part of that mentorship, and you were like, uncompromising Tad, like, no, that's not what I'm here for. Has that shifted? Are you now, was part of you creating a membership bringing in kind of thinking, perhaps there is something beneficial about creating online community, or not?
No, that didn't shift
So
for me.
just as uncompromising. You do make me laugh.
No, I'm still unpersuaded. To me, it's if it happens, it happens, and that's great. I'm thrilled. I mean, also from a marketing standpoint, it's the under promise and over deliver. There's also that if people do get community out of it and it wasn't promised, you're not on the hook for it if it doesn't work. But if they get it, then they're thrilled. Like, oh, I didn't expect there to be this kind of community, especially given, what a hard ass you were about it. And they found some anyways. But no, the shift towards a membership thing was purely a business model consideration. I think I can help more people make more money with less effort, or the same amount of effort as the mentorship. I think this business model makes more sense. Gives me a place I can take all of my content and put it in one thing and organize it in a way that I just can't on YouTube or my website quite as easily. It's a recurring revenue situation. And I had a bunch of ideas of things I could do. So it was really just that. I still have no interest in, I mean, there's members in the community who said, oh, let's start doing some networking calls where we can meet each other. I said, great, let's try it for 3 months. If it's useful for people and they want to do it, I'm not going to stop talking to people. I saw you smiling when they spoke. Stop being friends. It's not that. It's like, okay, if you want that, if that's useful for you, I'm happy to support it in that way. And then we'll see if that's of some use. I think they've done 1 call so far, so there'll be 2 more, and we'll see if there was a response to it. I just don't see that as what people are paying me for. They're paying me to grow their businesses, period. And here's the other reticence I've had about the online community thing, is I've seen the way that it gets used by the people running it to offload all the work onto the members. They all help each other. So a bunch of people with no clue wandering around a membership trying to help each other, other people who have no clue. And that gets sold as one of the big selling points. You've got this community of people who can all help you, and you can help each other, so that I, as the person, don't have to be on the hook for helping you and providing the value. And it's less useful than it seems, because most of those people are there because they're just as messed up about this issue as you. And not that there can't be any value, but I wouldn't pay for it. I wouldn't pay to be in a group of random people I've never met to help me with a really critical issue.
Yeah, that really makes sense. So putting the community aspect to one side for a moment, one of the reservations that we had and it was part of the decision of why, it wasn't the reason, but there was definitely part of this in the decision to stop running the membership we had. It didn't feel as though, in the way that we'd created it, it was allowing us to create the kind of depth of transformation that we knew was possible. And say, for example, if we're running a live course where we are kind of teaching particular content, meeting, I don't know, for example, every week, the way that, and this is definitely the way we'd created the membership, so none of what I'm saying is mutually exclusive, just to be clear, it was very much how we'd created it. And although people were, you know, loving it, getting amazing results, it still felt as though it wasn't going as deep. And I think depth is definitely a real value of mine personally and of ours as an organization. And it just felt like that there's deeper work possible in different contexts. So I'd love to know how you've created your membership in a way, and obviously the work you do is different to the work that we do, and I appreciate that, but I'd love to know your thoughts in terms of, you've obviously run all kinds of like courses, workshops, the mentorship. The way you've created the membership, do you feel that you're able to create it in a way that allows you to take people on a journey where they are getting the level of results or the depth of results that you intend?
Yeah, so I mean, right, there's different models that we can do things, and they can be mixed and matched and combined. So one model is you do a very short, you know, one evening presentation. Beauty of that, very safe for people to check out, free or very affordable. They get a taste of what you do. There's not going to be any real connection with the other people in the room, too quick, etc. You know, then you could do a day long, let's say, or a weekend workshop, a little retreat. And so then people do get to meet each other, and they do get a bit more risk, but a bit more of a structured journey you can take people on. And then you could do a 30-day something. And then, you know, the connections might deepen even more. People go on a much deeper journey, more risk, more money. You could, and then you can do like a 9-month situation. It's a program, you know, starts here, ends here. There's a cohort. It all goes through it together. They're probably going to be really tight with each other at the end. And then you could do a school where it's 2 or 3 years long, and there's a real journey, there's a real arc, and people just thick as thieves at the end of that. So, and then there's the membership, which is sort of the longest, it just never ends. And the challenge with, the shift to a membership is then there's less of a journey. It's more just, here's a bunch of content. There's not necessarily an arc, because how can you do that? Because there's no cohort. You can't,
Yes.
I mean, every year you could say, well, on day 1 we do this, but then somebody joins on day 17 and they didn't get that foundational work, and now they're confused and having to catch up. And so it's just, I think it falls apart a bit with a membership. Now, in my membership, I do 4 30-day programs every year, and that has a bit of an arc to it. And so people can go through those, but it is different than but it's interesting because with the mentorship, I also didn't have a real arc to it. It wasn't like that was also an ongoing situation. Join when you want, leave when you want. I didn't have a beginning, middle, and an end.
And they're on their own kind of journey, really, aren't they? Each person, I guess, and you're mentoring them on their whatever's showing up for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very individually focused. And so I just think that's a decision to make, is, do I want to do the kind of thing where it's Q&A calls all the time? And, you know, which is whatever people are needing, we help them, but they're basically on an individual. I mean, they're on a generally similar journey, but in their own place with it. We just give them the help they need. There's that. that you can do. And then there's the, I'm working with people who are starting here and they're wanting to end here. And that's the specific thing. And then you get much more specific in your marketing about it. So that those, people would be drawn and you're going for a certain number. There's probably a limit. Yeah, and you get them all from A to B. Right. So there's, and then
Island
there's
A
this.
from B, Island A and Island B, in fact.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then there's a question of, is it going to be low touch? Is it going to be high touch on your end? How much of your time do they get on the scale of 1 to 1 to 1 to many? I mean, how many are we talking about? So there's those decisions that need to be made in the structure of something. And then, yeah, what is there going to be a journey, or will it just be sort of troubleshooting as they go? And there's pros and cons to all of this. There's no right way to do it. So yeah.
And I guess the irony is, I'm thinking, like, did you answer my question? Because I feel like I loved everything you've said. I'm like, do I feel like you've answered the question? And I guess the simple answer is you are feeling as though, whilst it may not create that sense of kind of a cohort going from A to B, people are getting what they came for. They are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people do seem to enjoy it. And so I'd say maybe there's two models. One is this, I want to swim from island A to island B and I need help. And the other one is, I just really like this pool and I want to swim around in it with the kind of people who come to this pool, and I just want to hang out with you. I like Tad, I like what he's saying. I just want to swim around in those waters, which is sometimes the case, that people, they just like you and your point of view and your vibe, and they really they'll pay to just be around you and to be kind of swimming in your point of view and absorbing it. And they don't particularly even care so much about what is he going to talk about today? I don't know, but I know it'll be useful. And there's that. Now, I've also started in some of the calls, we do weekly calls that are Q&A, bringing a bit of content, like, here's an exercise, let's all work through it together. And I've been enjoying that. I've done that a couple times over the last little while, and I may do it where it's, hey, this week, this is the little exercise we're going to do, and then the rest will be Q&A, and announce it in advance so people can join. But yeah, I do think people are getting value, and it's, if they need more handholding, then they need to book some one-on-one time. From a business model standpoint, there's also that. There's also that I'm offering this membership with all this content, with a bunch of DIY courses that do take people from, island A to island B, that they can do on their own time. And if they're wanting that all translated for them specifically, yeah, then they would need to book some one-on-one time. So in that way, a membership is a good, creates an ecosystem of people who'd probably want to work with you much more deeply. And one could do that. One could have a membership and say, and we're also doing a cohort who wants to join, and the members are given the first refusal on that. They're given the first dibs on having access to this other work. So they don't have to be completely separate, which is, I suppose, what my 30-day programs are, is little mini bits of that. But you could have a membership and then a mentorship on top of it, where it's like, hey, every year, in addition to providing the membership, we do this deeper dive, and it's X number of months. And that could also be, it could, so then you have two choices. You could say, okay, we're going to do a 9-month journey in a very specific way, getting them from one point to another. Or it could be, well, no, it's just going to be deeper, more access to us, more swimming around in these waters, more helping them translate this stuff to their lives in general, without a particular curriculum to it. And some people, would be just thrilled with that.
Yeah. I was thinking, as I was listening to you, I was thinking, I was trying to think of a word that summed up when you're saying, just sort of swimming around in your waters and then they can choose into things. I was like, yeah, kind of like it's more like a relationship. And I was like, which you could call a community. I was like, I love the way we kind of, there's no getting away from it. I think this is also just a human thing, isn't it? Like we're so wired for connection. We're so wired to create that wherever we go. It kind of, as you're saying, it just happens, even if that's not the intention. Which I was chuckling to myself thinking, what's the word? Oh yeah, it's community. I love everything you said. And I was thinking the feedback we get constantly is that what people really value is that kind of Q&A, whether you call it kind of group mentoring, group coaching. That's the thing we get asked for over and over again. We do include it in some of the programs we do, but that's the thing that people always want more of. And so it sounds as though, is that primarily what you're creating your membership around, those kind of calls?
The open Q&A calls, you mean? In terms of what they get from me personally, that's not the 30-day programs, yes.
Yeah. No, I can really see the value of that. And I think the way you're describing it, again, with it being, I know that you're not going to consciously create it as a community, but in terms of us seeing it as another way to consciously invite people into creating relationships in a true way, in a heartfelt way, and keep bringing everything back to what we started this conversation about. And this is no substitute for your local community. In fact, if it's not actually serving you in creating deeper connections with your local community, there is no point to this anyway.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, I feel really excited actually with the what's possible here. So we're almost out of time, and as ever, it's really flown by. Is there anything we haven't talked about, I haven't asked you, that occurs to you that you would really like us to end this on? And it could be about community more generally, it could be about online community membership, anything kind of roughly. I mean, I think spiders was the thing I said we could just talk about, and it'd still be interesting. So could it be spiders? Like anything you think would be useful to end this conversation on?
Well, it's just that, for anyone who's thinking about creating community, it can be on one level, there's the danger of offloading everything onto the other people. But on the other side, there's the danger of taking everything on your back and thinking you need to be the one to host everything. So in our membership, for the pro members, there's 5 calls a week, and I'm only at one of them, which is the Q&A call, where I'm trying to help them translate this material into their own businesses. But on Monday, we do a niching practice where they take one of my videos, a niching exercise, they play it, and then they go do the exercise, and then they come back and share what they came up with. And then Tuesday, there's a community collaboration call where they get together and offer coaching to each other. Broken into Zoom rooms of 4 people, everybody gets 12 minutes in the seat. And then the Wednesdays, there's a copy clinic where they get together and give each other feedback on each other's sales copy. Thursdays, there's a point of view practice where they watch a little video of mine, exercise around articulating your point of view, go off, do the exercise, come back, share. And Fridays, there's the Q&A call. So I'm not at those 4 calls. And I just realized I don't need to be. I already did the video. That's the content. They can do it. And yeah, it's helpful to share with each other. It is helpful to learn from each other and offer reflections. And then the people who lead those calls, I say, well, for every 4 of them you lead, at this point, this is the deal. For every 4 you lead, I'll give you a puttering session. I'll give you a one-on-one session with me. So, and the price of that will probably go up, over time as the price of the puttering sessions goes up, et cetera. So but that's kind of the deal, is they get something, there's some reciprocation, and the members seem to really like it. It's really helpful for them to have that space. So just for people listening, if you're thinking about creating some sort of online something or in-person something, you don't have to be the one to do everything. If I thought I had to be at every single call, and when I have guest presenters come in, I'm not always there. Sometimes I'm there to welcome them, but often it happens without me, which keeps my life sustainable, because I also just don't want to be online all the time.
Mm.
And so that's just a thought I'd leave people with.
Oh, I'm so glad you added that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Tad, as ever, this has been absolutely fabulous. And again, one that was selfishly really helpful for me personally, but I do think I'm sure listeners will love it. Everyone really, really enjoyed our last conversation. So it feels like a really nice kind of part 2 to it. Where can listeners find out about you and your amazing work? I think most of them probably one way or another have ended up in your field too, but just in case, where can they find you?
Yeah, marketingforhippies.com. That's where all the stuff is. There's a bunch of free stuff you can check out, and all my social media contacts are there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tad.
Thank you so much.